Speaker.
When Parliament is sitting, MPs are busy with committees, House sittings, caucus meetings and oversight of the executive. The hours are long and the work is hard. Since the onset of virtual meetings, the days do seem shorter and more condensed. But with reams of documents to read and pages of legislation to process, the job of an MP is not an easy one. And the constituency period is no different.
We need to emphasize that particularly within this period of a few months before the end of the sixth parliament, members of parliament are expected to ensure that they interact with members of the communities to give them feedback with regard to the work that has been happening since the start of this current term of parliament, the bills that have been passed by the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces.
Political parties agree this is a very important part of the job.
It's important to treat this not as a holiday for members of parliament, but for an opportunity for them to connect with their constituents, find issues that are most important to their constituents so that we can bring them to parliament for resolution. It's also quite important, obviously, as the IEC has come out to say that there will be a registration weekend, that members of parliament are also doing their political work and ensuring that South Africans are registered correctly.
If people think it is a holiday for members of parliament, well, not in the Freedom Front Plus. In fact, we are working much harder than only to deliver speeches in Parliament and attending the portfolio committees. And it is very, very important to have that contact with the electorate. And we also explain to them, which is very important, that for the next year's election, that people must register and that they can go and vote.
The IFP has put together a program for all members of the National Assembly and the NCOP to avail themselves for IFP outreach programs. Such programs will include a 3-day session on visits to places in Soweto and Ekurhuleni, to Home Affairs offices, to SASA offices, and will include a 2-day workshop on hearing public opinion and professional opinion on the recently passed NHI bill before it goes through to the NCOP.
SADP MPs will be spending a lot of time in their constituencies interacting with communities. We are sadly quite thinly spread across the country, and this means that our MPs work exceptionally hard. It will be no holiday for us during this constituency period. In addition, some of us will be involved in parliamentary committees where permission has been obtained to sit during this period. Lastly, of course, we will all be interacting with the public in the run-up to next year's elections, which adds even more work to our already overstretched ACDP MPs.
Lawson Naidu of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution says in many cases it's difficult to ascertain exactly what MPs are doing during this time.
Unfortunately, there's no proper reporting mechanism. So parties, whilst they get funding from Parliament for constituency work, they don't either account properly in terms of financial reporting on those monies that they receive from Parliament, and even less so do they report back to Parliament on what exactly is being done by MPs during that time and what are the issues that are being brought back for consideration by Parliament or any of its committees. So that's a big weakness in the system. But ideally, MPs should be spending time talking to voters in their constituencies. And obviously, this also has an impact in terms of larger parties are more clearly able to allocate their MPs to demarcated areas to do this work. For smaller parties with just a few seats, it's impossible for them to cover the whole country.
Naidu says this highlights an anomaly in the electoral system. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.